Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Footy Accumulators Betting Show with me, Will Perry, Mr. Alan Bruce McInally, who once graced the hallowed turf at Ayr United before eventually going on to play for the German minnows, Bayern Munich. And as always, James Vickers, our betting expert here to try and help us sprinkle some fairy dust into our bank accounts. And apart from Bayern plodding on, it's been a pretty unpredictable start since the restart, Alan, hasn't it?
It's been incredible. We've spoken in the last couple of weeks when we've done this football betting Bundesliga show on about home victories. There's not been very many of them, so you've got to tread a little carefully. And of course, we're building up to the Premier League, and it might be the same there as well, Will. But I was a little bit disappointed with my choice at the weekend, considering they went 1-0 up with 5 minutes to go and couldn't hold on for a win and drew 1-1. That was Cologne. So I wasn't very happy with that when, who was it they were playing again? Yeah, Augsburg equalised late on in the game. So, yeah, you just tread a little bit carefully, but hopefully we've got 4 of the right ones this weekend. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We did all right the week before, didn't we? So we're still celebrating on the back of that one. But James, look, as Alan says there, it's a good point, isn't it? Because maybe it is a lesson for those fancying a punt in the Premier League when that resumes next week. 2 home wins out of 9, I guess, again this week in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, and there was me picking Leipzig to win at home on my nap. So I should have gone with that. I know Alan's been going on about it for weeks and I should have listened to him. But yeah, I was getting ready to gloat again to Alan about his nap pick letting us down on the Acca, but mine went and did it as well. So yeah, on the side of caution for the Premier League, I think it's been pretty nightmarish to predict so far.
Yeah, so the Bundesliga sides have 4 games to play, don't they? Here are the results from match week 30. Freiburg winners on Friday night. Bayern, Mainz and Dortmund all won on Saturday, with Werder Bremen losing at home to Wolfsburg on Sunday. So the table looks like this. Bayern still flying, 7 points clear at the top on the way to their 8th consecutive Bundesliga title. Dortmund, Leipzig and Mönchengladbach making up the other Champions League spots. Leverkusen and Wolfsburg looking good as it stands for the Europa League. And down the other end, the familiar sight of Paderborn and Werder Bremen, the bottom 2, with Fortuna Düsseldorf in the relegation playoff place. If you are looking for additional stats and trends ahead of this weekend's Bundesliga action, go and download the Footy Accumulators Betting Hub app. Check out the smart Acca function as well. And remember, you've got to be 18 plus to bet, and please gamble responsibly. We talked a lot, didn't we, Alan, last week about Timo Werner. And in the sort of 6 days since we last spoke, it's been confirmed that Chelsea have agreed a deal with him. They're going to pay out that release clause fee to RB Leipzig. 25 goals in the Bundesliga this season. Well worth, as we said last week, the 54 million quid. Are you surprised that Chelsea is his final destination? There was so much talk about Liverpool. Even he said he was so proud to be associated with that link.
Yeah, exactly. The good thing is that it's maybe just highlighted the fact that the Bundesliga have started up early and managers have watched and thought, well, yeah, he's been on our radar, but he's looking pretty good, so we'll go and spend the money on him. He's going to be a really good addition for Chelsea. I'm absolutely no doubt about it. If you can score that amount of goals in the Bundesliga and with the chances that Chelsea are going to get, and by the way, I would imagine with more additions to the Chelsea team as well, Will, presumably anyway, that they're going to be a team that might just score more goals than they let in next year, because they've been linked with a lot more than just Timo Werner, and the players have already got there. It's looking pretty good if Frank can get them all in. I'm just not surprised. He just doesn't give the ball away. Very quick, and he's when you're talking about can you use him, apart from what he can do for you, depending on how you play with his pace down the flanks, you can use him as a deterrent for anybody coming towards you. So I think it's a wonderful signing for Chelsea. I really do.
And they've got options, James, haven't they, now in terms of that front 4? Let's just say that they play a 4-2-3-1. And we discussed it last week about Werner's versatility. And look, he's not a big guy, is he? But he's quick. He's 5'11", and he probably runs 100 meters in 10 point something. Where are Chelsea going to get the best out of him? Bearing in mind that Tammy Abraham is already, you'd think, nailed down that number 9 spot. Yeah,
it's an interesting one. I was drafting up where sort of formations and where they'd play him sort of off air, and he can play anywhere across that front 3 really. What is going to be interesting is, as you said, how Frank can fit them all in. You got the likes of Pulisic, they've brought in Hakim Ziyech, they've got Mason Mount already, and Tammy Abraham, as you mentioned. So getting that balance of them, I think what they will have with Werner is that blessing that he can play anywhere across that front line and still be effective. He's played off the left for Germany. He's played as a sort of a partner for Yusuf Poulsen for Leipzig. to great success as well. So I think what he will bring to that Chelsea team, compared to the likes of, say, Willian and Pedro, who you'd assume is going to be coming in and replacing, is a lot more versatility in that forward line, a lot more goal threat than those two have provided. You'd expect them to get into sort of high single figures each season for goals and chip in with assists as well. But I think Werner is going to be, easily getting into double figures for them. And you look at the likes of the playmakers that they've brought in as well with Pulisic and Ziyech, and that's only going to benefit them as well with two really good strikers who can put the ball in the back of the net. So as Alan mentioned, I think Chelsea next season are going to be probably, if not one of the most exciting teams to watch in the Premier League, just with, how much attacking talent they have in those forward areas.
Al, they've been good servants, haven't they? The two guys that James mentioned in terms of Willian and Pedro, and the latter stages of their career. But he's definitely adding some pace, Frank, isn't he, with Ziyech and Timo Werner, and perhaps the trickery and pace, the combination of which they've missed since Eden Hazard left.
Yeah, I really liked both Willian and Pedro, to be honest. In fact, Pedro went through a spell of about 4 months where he was probably one of the most important players for Chelsea, because he was the most dangerous player sticking the ball in the back of the net from whatever he was doing. As a football player, your time comes to a point where when things don't go just brilliant for you, you pick up a couple of injuries and places are hard to come by. It's Frank now building his own team, remember. This is Frank Lampard's team. He's in the market for bringing in players. And I repeat what I just said. I think getting Timo Werner is a great addition. Youth as well, of course, and an international football player. And maybe more importantly, and I always talk about this, and I joke about this with some football players, I was very fortunate to play with big football teams. You couldn't just go into training and just say, it'll be easy this week. Can't do that. Can't do it. On a Saturday, if you're not bang at it, you can forget it. And that's why some players who go to big teams are never seen again, because they simply couldn't handle it. It's all right playing at Southampton or Burnley or whoever, with the greatest respect to them. When you get to the top level, you've got to keep your foot pressed on the pedal all the time, or you're not going to be playing. And when Timo Werner has been under, because there's been a lot of, not pressure, but there's been a lot of scrutinisation over Leipzig with the money he spent and obviously the success they've had. And he's going to go into a position at Chelsea that's plenty is expected from him. And I think he can handle that, because I think he's already proved when he's done it with Germany, he's handled the pressure and he's managed to do the business.
So 54 million quid for Timo Werner, James. Another man we talked a lot about last week, and his name's come up many times for good reason on this show this season, is Kai Havertz. 75 million quid apparently Chelsea interested in him for. Manchester United still in the running as well. But that would be a statement, wouldn't it, to go and get both of them, two of the big stars in the Bundesliga?
Definitely. I think Frank Lampard's been taking advice from me off my FIFA career mode over the last few years, but I looked at it. What a combination that would be. I mentioned the likes of, Pulisic and Ziyech coming in, but with Havertz, we've seen in the Bundesliga over the last few weeks, he can play anywhere again, like Werner off that front line. He can play as that out-and-out forward. He's not afraid to put himself in the air. So he kind of couples Werner quite well in terms of, one who's not afraid to run in behind, one who's good in the air. And again, it just really adds to that creativity and talent depth that Chelsea will have in that forward area if they do obviously get that deal done. I think
James is Havertz. Sorry to interrupt, mate.
That's all right.
Would you say Havertz is a striker, a forward, a midfielder, attacking midfielder? What is it? Because
this is a touchy subject for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because, and I was dying to reply to this idiot on Twitter, and I thought, you say potato and I say potato. I mean, I honestly thought he's more of a forward player than a midfield player. That's what I thought. But you can tell me different, and I'll go with what you say, not this idiot on Twitter.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. When he first came into the side sort of 18 months to 2 years ago, I thought he was more of a sort of an attacking midfielder. What he has added to his game, when he came into the side, he didn't really fill the Leverkusen shirt. He looked like a boy playing with men. He was still getting goals and chipping in with assists, but over the last sort of year, especially, similar to McTominay at United, he's really bulked out, grown into that body of his, and he looks more adept now playing off that front line, similar to how sort of Götze would do in that forward areas for Germany. So I think, now he's transitioned from that attacking midfield stage into a forward who can play anywhere across that front three. Similar to Werner, obviously he doesn't have the same amount of pace as Werner, but I think he's more effective in that final third area. So definitely from someone who's watched him quite a bit, I would play him as a forward, as you said.
Yeah, we can play a little game, can't we? Because you've been mentioning FIFA there, James. And let's do it, because all I've heard all summer, as I said a few weeks ago, is Alan's voice on FIFA. And I'll play the Derek Ray role. There's been another goal in the game between Bayern Munich and Leverkusen. Alan McInally can tell us about it.
Is there? I've missed it again.
How long did that take you to do, by the way? How many scripts did you have to do on that one?
Well, there was one about that thick, and we had like the whole morning to do it, and you've got to, obviously, you don't repeat yourself, but to try and rattle through them and read them, and go through, and then drink of water, and then go through. It took us a good week.
A week?
We did a couple of days, then we had a break, then a couple again, but the scripts are unbelievable. I mean, it's amazing, me being an old fella, how they can put all this information onto this desk is just astonishing. And the computers that they have to mix the voices and put all the information on, it really was brilliant doing it. It was fantastic doing it. I don't know whether they're going to update bits and pieces this year, or even whether I'll be on it again. I don't know, but it certainly was. It was a great thing to do. It was fantastic. It was a great piece. Apparently, somebody said in New York, it was in a newspaper. Who is Alan McInally? Because obviously these guys are getting it in America and they're playing all the whatever they're playing. They're like, here's this guy again. Who is Alan McInally? So it's been quite nice. It's been lovely.
There's been a few Wikipedia searches going on, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Just finally on FIFA, actually, James, it's an interesting one, because I was reading this week that when the Premier League resumes, I know in the Bundesliga we've just been having sort of deathly silences, which has actually been really interesting, isn't it, to hear the likes of Haaland screaming at Marco Reus or whatever, to hear the coaches on the side as well. But actually, apparently, the option in the Premier League is going to be for people at home watching the games, whether that's on Sky, BT, whatever, or BBC as well, that you can pump in FIFA soundtracks, but they're not allowed to do it in the stadium because of the home advantage rules.
Yeah, I, as a bit of sort of a nerd for football, I've really enjoyed like the silence and been able to hear sort of people on the pitch shouting. I'm sure Alan will be used to this, but hearing sort of the tactics that get shouted and that kind of thing. So it's been interesting for me. The Dortmund game, I think last weekend had it, and it was a nice change, to be honest, hearing sort of fan noise in the stadium again. I think it was Paul Dempsey was commentating, and the guy who was in sort of the sound truck with it was obviously sort of playing off him. Every time Paul Dempsey had mentioned something, he'd pipe in a different bit of crowd noise. So they seem to be having fun with it. I think it will add something to the Premier League games. I think over in the Premier League, especially, it does rely on the atmosphere from the crowd. So watching it at home, it definitely has added something. As I said, as a bit of a geek for that kind of thing, I did enjoy it more without the sound. But I can understand why they've done it and why that will add something to the games.
I know why they're going to do it.
Swearing on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can understand the swear words in German when I'm hearing it in the German thing. And nobody really that's watching the games is aware that they're actually saying a bad word. Trust me, you'll hear every single thing in English and we'll be like, oh, sorry if you heard the comments on it. They'll be fed up saying that, the commentators. So I would imagine it may be more to do with the profanity from the lads playing than necessarily the fact they really want to hear the sound pumped in.
Yeah, and the manager's just as bad, aren't they? I mean, I've sat behind Dean Smith before. I've learnt a few words there in the Villa dugout. Right, guys, so before we move on from Chelsea, then let's play that little game and pick the front four for Chelsea. Al, what would you be going for? Out of the names then, Ziyech, Mount, Pulisic, Barkley, Giroud, Abraham. I tell you what, let's throw Kai Havertz in there as well. All those guys available, picking your strongest front four.
Wow. I like Ziyech. He's a good player. I think I need to play him, but play him on the flanks. I need to go with Tammy Abraham as well because he's done just so fantastically well. So I'll go Abraham, Timo Werner, Ziyech, and who do I play on the right?
Pulisic, would he play out there? Or
Pulisic, I don't like him out wide. I think he's better in the middle as a three. Let's hope they get Havertz and they can play him out there. Then that'd be what a front four that would be.
Wow.
Good. Help me out here, James. Who am I missing? So I'm going to go Abrahams, Werner, Ziyech, and who can they play on the right? Or
you've still got Pedro and Willian, and
I was going to throw in Pedro. Pedro could play that role on the right hand side quite well. I don't know whether it's a guarantee that he will actually lead Chelsea. So I'll throw Pedro in the right hand side, but that would be a brilliant. And then of course with the likes of Mason Mount, who sits in the middle of the park, and Pulisic, then I think they'd be pretty strong, Chelsea. I really do.
Yeah, James, Peter Crouch, incidentally, was saying that he thinks Frank Lampard's going to play both Werner and Abraham because he thinks Abraham has done enough. Could you play Werner wide, Ziyech wide, Abraham as the man up top? What would your front four be?
Yeah, similar to Alan, I'd have Abraham as my focal point down the middle. I think I'd have Werner coming in from the left. I've mentioned he's done so well for Germany there, and some of the goals he's scored since the restart, he's been counter-attack, cutting off the left and bending it in with his right foot. So I'd have him out left. I go Ziyech on the right. In that centre role, yeah, as Alan said, you can have Pulisic, Mount, Kai Havertz.
Can we play Can we play Barkley?
Barkley can play there, yeah. And then
I think he's probably better further forward, James, actually, than he is deeper.
Definitely, yeah. So it's going to be a good headache for Lampard to have, trying to fit all them in. It's one that, he's not really had sort of the luxury of rotating, especially if Abraham gets injured, for example. He's had to rely on, say, Batshuayi and Giroud, who haven't had the same impact as Abraham. So having the likes of Werner and Ziyech now, who pose a goal and assist threat, great for him. And you look even further back as well with the likes of Kante and Kovacic as well. They're going to have some side next season.
Something else I want to talk to you guys about is the Champions League, because I don't know if you guys saw this week that it's an evolving story, isn't it? How we're going to get the Champions League restarted and finished. But one of the suggestions is that it's going to happen in August. It's going to be a World Cup style finish to it, all in one location. Lisbon apparently leading the race at the moment for that. From a German point of view, obviously, we've still got Chelsea and Manchester City's names in there, but from a German point of view, Bayern Munich and Leipzig cruising past Tottenham. First of all, Alan, what do you make of that concept then, to have it all in, well, not necessarily one stadium, but one city in the space of 3 weeks to finish?
I think it might be a good idea for the simple reason they want to get it finished. They want an outcome. They want a result in the competition. It still is the biggest, obviously, European competition. It still carries that kind of weight that we would want to try and finish domestic seasons, but we'd obviously try and finish the Premium Cup competition. If they can manage to do it in one city, fantastic. I do think the way Bayern are playing right now, they might just have gone favourites, to be honest, because they look pretty good in every department, Bayern Munich, at the moment. And some of the positions that I thought were a problem have now been filled at fullback, have now been filled at the left-hand side. Thomas Muller continues to be fantastic as almost an addition as a new player. And David Alaba now all of a sudden is one of the best centre-backs in the world. So I think Bayern at the moment are looking pretty strong. I'd love that to be the case if they can manage somehow to finish the Champions League. And whatever they come up with, I'm a big supporter of it, because I think it'd be great to see that competition finished.
Yeah, here's some latest odds for you, James. Manchester City, incidentally, still favourites. They've been favourites all season, haven't they? Even when Liverpool were cruising before getting knocked out by Atletico. 11-4 City to win the Champions League. Bayern Munich, second favourites, 3-1. Then you got down the list, PSG 4-1, Barcelona 7-1. Some interesting bets going to go on there, certainly in the next few weeks. But Bayern Munich, we should remember, shouldn't we, just before we broke up, Bayern 3-0 up on Chelsea in the first leg of that round of 16. Absolutely smashed it in London, didn't they? We talked about the performances there of Alphonso Davies and others.
Yeah, definitely. I think what would work in Bayern Munich and Leipzig's favour is the fact that they could have their Bundesliga games all wrapped up, in the next few weeks. Premier League, other leagues that are restarting now are going to have to get all those games in. They won't really have a down period before going into that Champions League sort of tournament, if you like, over a 3-week period. So that could benefit the Bundesliga sides, having a bit of downtime, refresh, get a few sort of nagging injuries healed up, and then go into that. Again, it could play against them if they're having a break and then having to come back. That'd almost be like their pre-season. So will be an interesting one to call. I think Bayern, fairly safe to say that they're going to go through in that game, 3-0 up, 3 away goals. And Alphonso Davies was absolutely fantastic in that first leg, tore Chelsea to pieces at times. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch. I think, agree with Alan. I think Bayern probably would be favourites, to be honest. I think they have a bit more at the moment in key areas than Man City, who you mentioned were favourites. So I think definitely those two would be the two that you go for, but I think Bayern probably would edge it at the moment.
Hey James, you'll like this one. I've actually got 50 quid on PSG at 8-1, which I put on in probably end of October. And just as I said, Bayern look favourites. I was just remembered that I had 50 quid on PSG to win the Champions League, and I was thinking, I wonder if I could just get the competition cancelled, I'd take my 50 quid back right now. Because obviously with the French league not being playing at all at the moment, they'd be coming in pretty cold. So I would say that any advantage I thought I might have with the way that they were playing, etc., has probably disappeared.
That's quite tempting, though, isn't it, James? Just find on the Champions League 3-1, Bayern Munich, Champions League winners.
Yeah, definitely. I think for those odds, for how well they're playing at the moment, I think they've won 15 of the last 16 games. I'd expect them to carry that on more or less till the end of the season as well. So couldn't be in any sort of better form going into it. The squad that they've got, Alan mentioned, they've filled in those key positions that we thought were sort of question marks for them. Pavard and Davies have really stepped up into those positions. And yeah, I just can't see past them at the moment, especially with the depth in squad that they've got now with sort of key players returning from injury like Hernandez and Cuisance.
Right, let's move on to the Nap Challenge, because James is still leading 3-2, but there's no celebrating from either of you this week. I don't think so, because James, you picked Frankfurt to beat Mainz and over 2.5 goals as well. It finished 2-0 Mainz, didn't it? An away win. What a win that is. I don't think anyone saw, well, many people saw that coming. And Alan, you went for Cologne to beat Augsburg, and that finished 1-1 as well. So bunch of idiots we're working with here, yeah.
Unbelievable, seriously. When Cologne scored, honestly, but all my bath water nearly came out the bath, for God's sakes.
What time are you having a bath here?
2 minutes. Yeah, I sort of jumped in the bath like that with a little aperitif watching the thing. Cologne scored in the 85th minute. I was like, 3-3, I've managed to catch them. And then Philip Max went up the other end and scored. I was like, I can't believe this. I can't wait till I speak to everybody again. Anyway, yeah, you're right. We were hopeless.
Right, so this weekend, James, you're going to go first from a pick of on Friday, Hoffenheim, Leipzig, Saturday, Cologne, Union Berlin, Düsseldorf taking on Dortmund. It's Hertha, Frankfurt, Paderborn, Werder Bremen, Wolfsburg at home to Freiburg, and Bayern play Mönchengladbach. And then on Sunday, if you fancy either of these two, Mainz, Augsburg, and Leverkusen go to Schalke. Mr. Vickers.
Yes, I am going to go this week. I'm going to play it relatively safe. Frankfurt, when I went for him last week, were a little bit hit and miss. I gave Alan a bit of a chance, but yeah, he couldn't capitalise on it. So I'm going to go with Dortmund away at Fortuna Düsseldorf. Game that I probably would have gone to be honest, if fans were allowed in the stadiums. I know quite a lot of the UK Fortuna Düsseldorf fan club and have a great time when I go over there. Dortmund, I expect them to win this. I think Haaland will be back. He's been in training for the last week, and when he plays, Dortmund are just so much better. It allows Brandt to sit a bit deeper and dictate the play, which he hasn't been able to do in recent weeks, which I think is why he's been, one of the first players subbed off in recent weeks. It just really neutralises him playing him in that sort of number 10 role. Havertz back. Fortuna, a little bit unlucky against Hoffenheim. I think they had nearly 70% possession and drew 2-2 against a team that were down to 10 men for the majority of the game. So they're coming into the game off, that disappointing draw and a hammering against Bayern Munich. And Dortmund, 5 of the last 6, they've won them all. I just can't look past them. I think in key areas, they'll have a bit too much for Fortuna. Fortuna play quite a high pressing game, and with the speed and talent that Dortmund have on the flanks, it's a dangerous game to play against Dortmund. So, yeah, going to go Dortmund. I'm not going to get brave and put any sort of handicaps or anything on, because I want to stay comfortably ahead of Alan with the weeks down. Dortmund for me. I expect them to go there and come home with the 3 points.
And this, of course, will continue into the Premier League games as well. So you're still leading going into the restart of the Premier League. But Betfair are going to do this for us this week, James. Just fine on that one. I've got in front of me, tell me if I'm wrong, something like 6-1 for, something like 2-5, 6-1 for the Düsseldorf win.
Yeah, 2-1 for Dortmund or 1.4 if you're doing decimals. Yeah, decent odds. I expect, as I said, Haaland to be back in. Royce and Zagadou still going to be out for the long term, but they've replaced them quite comfortably. Emre Can was fantastic against Hertha Berlin the other night. What a signing he's turned out to be. Really commanded that defence. Hummels was suspended for it. He'll be back for the Fortuna game. So yeah, Dortmund more or less back at full strength, and decent odds considering that they've won 5 of the last 6.
Al, you threw your arms up like you'd fancy a bit of that as well. What are you going to go for?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to catch him because I think he's spot on. There's no way. Well, I shouldn't actually say this after all, but it is an away win as well for Dortmund, so that's probably the likelihood. But I don't see Düsseldorf. I mean, I watched a little bit of the Düsseldorf game at the weekend, and I know they finished 2-2, but I don't know, just unconvincing. And in the position you're in, I didn't see. There was fight, but I didn't see a real energy and I don't know. I just don't see them getting out of it. And to be honest, with the bottom 3 looking the way it is, I have an opportunity at the weekend, hopefully, to just stay one behind. I'm going to go Mainz to win at at home to Augsburg. I thought Mainz were really good. It's a brilliant result from the other day when they won 2-0 against Eintracht Frankfurt. Niakati's goal, the header, was an absolute beauty. And of course, they play Augsburg. They can go above Augsburg. And with Dusseldorf, with that really difficult game against Dortmund, are likely to be in the same position. And they can put the gap between them. I had a little look earlier on. So it's 3 points at the moment. They can go 6 points ahead with 3 games to go. So if you've got an opportunity in a home game against Augsburg, who have only been okay, who are only just above you, then I would expect to see exactly the same kind of commitment from the Mainz team as I saw against Eintracht Frankfurt. Because I think if they win it and put 6 points between themselves and Dusseldorf, I think that means they might be a Bundesliga team next year. So I'm going to go Mainz at home to Augsburg. And also, they need a little bit of revenge because Augsburg beat them in December 2-1. So they can turn that over. I'll be delighted if it finishes 2-1 again.
Nice. Okay, so we've got Dortmund for James and Mainz for Alan. Nice bold one for Alan. In fact, I'll ask Alan the next question. James, if you can stick that into your calculator and work out what Alan might get for that, for Mainz at home to Augsburg. Look, match in focus this week. Easy one to pick, isn't it? Bayern Munich against Borussia Mönchengladbach. The reigning champions, what they need 2 wins, don't they, to claim their 8th Bundesliga title in a row. 8, that's worth repeating, isn't it? 8th Bundesliga title in a row. It's just ridiculous. After seeing off Bayer Leverkusen, of course, 4-2 on Saturday. We should mention, though, Alan, that Bayern Munich play midweek, don't they, in the German Cup semi-final against Frankfurt Wednesday. So, this is advantage Mönchengladbach in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough. You've got a game on Tuesday night. You've got Saarbrücken, who are down in the 3rd or 4th division now. Saarbrücken against Leverkusen, and then obviously the Frankfurt game against Bayern on a Wednesday night. So yeah, you're hoping that, Hansi Flick will be hoping he comes through the game, A, victorious, and B, without any bad injuries. I wonder whether he might shuffle the pack a little bit there in terms of the players that James quite rightly said are coming back in. He might even start them, and then obviously with the opportunity to bring more subs on, actually use that facility and still try and win the game. It'll be a good game. It won't be an easy game for Bayern. I think Alassane Play and Thuram have looked pretty good in front of goal with Gladbach. Marco Rose's got a decent tune out of Gladbach, to be fair. How did they get on it? Although they got beat, funnily enough, was it the Friday night game, wasn't it? Freiburg beat them 1-0, which, to be honest, has probably killed everything before we even got to the weekend, because I think a lot of people thought that they would probably go to Freiburg and win, considering they're sitting in a position that they could have closed the gap at the top and didn't manage to do that. I still think Bayern will have too much, but of all the games so far, regardless of the Dortmund-Leverkusen game, because that title is almost within touching distance, it just becomes a little bit more of a banana skin for me for Bayern. I don't think they'll go out and win it by 3s and 4s like I think they've done. I think it'll be much tighter. And keeping Gladbach off the score sheet will be something I think that'll be high on the agenda in training this week for Hansi Flick. I think still Bayern will win it, but I don't think by any means it'll be a walkover for sure. I've been quite impressed, apart from last weekend, actually, in Gladbach. They let everybody down in the betting, but I still think Bayern will win.
Yeah, they let me down as well, and the room might scupper my little private Acca that I've got going that I've been telling you guys about, which is a little pension pot, which has got about minus 50 quid in it. Look, James, talking about Bayern Munich being so dominant, they lost, didn't they, to Gladbach in December, and since then winning 15, drawing 1 of the 16 games, looking so good. Since lockdown, they've scored 17 goals in 5 matches.
Yeah, you mentioned there, Gladbach won the reverse game earlier this season, and Gladbach actually won the game at the Allianz Arena at Bayern last season as well, 3-0. So it's a game which Gladbach do have some recent history in, more or less back to full strength now. I thought they were disappointing against Freiburg, considering, that they had a decent sort of start since the pause in the season. I would have expected them to go there and win that. But yeah, Alan quite rightly mentioned Player and Thuram up front. Probably, if you look at 2 strikers that play week in, week out, you look at Dortmund and Bayern, who only play with the 1. I think Player and Thuram as a duo are probably the best duo in the Bundesliga, especially outside those top 2 teams. So got a real array of talent in those forward areas. Lars Stindl's back as well, and I've been so impressed with Florian Neuhaus as well, who sits a little bit deeper. I think the key sort of battle in that game is going to be that Neuhaus-Hoffmann against Goretzka and Kimmich. I wouldn't be surprised if Stindl plays a little bit deeper for Gladbach to try and counteract that Bayern midfield rather. I think Bayern will still have too much. I think, as Alan said, they will rest a few players in midweek against Frankfurt. I would expect them to beat Frankfurt in the cup, with the depth that they've got. So, yeah, I think Bayern should win. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams score. I think 4 of the last 5 have been over 2.5 goals in this fixture. So it is a game that delivers. I don't think Bayern will win sort of comfortably by force and fights, which they have been doing in recent weeks. But yeah, it should still be an entertaining game and one that I'm looking forward to watching on Saturday evening.
I'm glad, Will, that James mentioned the boys at Lars Stindl. He looked actually, I know they got beat, but from free kicks, and I think he takes everything, doesn't he? He takes free kicks, by kicks, corner kicks, throw-ins. He takes them all, but he's good at it as well. I think that might be where Gladbach just might be most dangerous against Munich, actually.
Yeah. Well, in terms of these names you're mentioning, then some of these are standing out on the list I've got in front of me. Marcus Thuram, 9-1 first scorer, 11-5 any time. And Plia, 11-5, same odds, 11-5 any time, 9-1 first scorer. Stindl, as we said, the set piece master for Gladbach, 14-1 first goal scorer, 7-2 any time. And then on the other side of the coin, you've probably got the inevitable of Robert Lewandowski, first goal scorer, 7-4, 3-10. Anytime. Alan, as you were in the bath last week and your wild card situation was thrown out with the bath water very early on, have we got another one for this week?
Wild card.
It was very specific last week, wasn't it? I think we got.
I know, yeah. Well, I could see the game developing. Obviously, I mean, listen, it was actually, I had a bit of fun. I got a bit of stick as well, given I think the big man's been drinking in lockdown. When he thinks he can be that precise, getting Lewandowski gets a penalty, scores first, scores another one in Leverkusen, get a consolation with Havertz scoring, and obviously Havertz didn't even start the game. So probably then let's just go for 1 and 1 only. You've just mentioned first goal scorer. It's a bet I quite like to have in the game because the first 20 minutes is always quite exciting. I'm going to go for Serge Gnabry to score, to start, and to score the first goal against Gladbach.
Okay, 5-1 that would be 5-1, 11-10 anytime. James, before we move on, anything take your fancy just looking down the list and what you've been listening to?
Yeah, unlike Alan, I'll stick my neck on the line this week and go for a little bit of a sort of a wild card one. I think Neuhaus is going to open the scoring for Gladbach against the run of play, probably about half an hour in. I think Bayern will get one back just before half time. Probably Gnabry I'm going to go for. So Neuhaus to open the scoring for Gladbach.
16-1 Neuhaus to open the scoring.
Gnabry to get one back just before half time. And then I think in the second half, Lewandowski will get another goal to take him to 45 goals this season. Bayern will win 2-1 and be 1 win away from the title.
Well, I've just gone on my betting site and apparently that's 2.8 million to 1. So good odds there for you.
What I love is that James has coined the phrase now, hasn't he, on this show? Just like, unlike Alan, I'm going to stick my neck out this week.
Yeah, exactly.
23-2 up. So.
Right, boys, let's move on, unfortunately, to the Acca again. I can't keep carrying you every week. Mine keep coming off. You guys are... I don't know what you're playing
at. You've been doing really well betting Bayern every week, Will. Congratulations.
Hey, I had Dortmund last week against Hertha.
You did.
Tight one. Right, this week. So I'll kick us off. And I won't go Bayern and I won't go Dortmund. And I'm going to go, tell me if you don't fancy this, but I had a little look at it and thought Leverkusen at Schalke on Sunday.
Like it.
Yep.
Like it. Yeah. I don't know, will Havertz be back, James?
Hopefully. They sort of said, well, there was talk that he'd missed a game due to, rumours of him signing for a different team, but he did get quite a bad knock, which I mentioned against Freiburg. They said it wasn't anything serious, more of like a dead leg. So, yeah, these things sort of heal over the space of a week. So I would expect him to be back from that. Even so, I think Leverkusen should still beat Schalke. Schalke, I mean, I'm surprised how poor they've been. They're getting players back now. They're still missing key men in the middle of the park, but, been absolutely woeful to watch. I think the bottom of the form guide, and I think I said a couple of weeks ago, they're lucky that they got so many points on the board early in the season because that has more or less saved them.
They're plummeting, James, aren't they? Just looking at the table. 10th in the table, 38 points, 7 points off the Europa League spots that only 3-4 weeks ago we were all saying that they're right in the mix to get in the top 6.
Yeah, so I'd be happy going with Leverkusen as the first one for yours, Will.
Okay, nice. Well, that on its own is single betting at 8-13. Go on, Al. You kick off next.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to be Sunday in the bath kid watching both their games. So I'm going to go Mainz at home to Augsburg for the simple reason, and apart from the thought that it was a brilliant result on Saturday, 2-0 against Eintracht Frankfurt, who maybe weren't at their absolute best, they have the opportunity, to go above Augsburg, and with Dusseldorf having such a difficult game against Dortmund, they have a chance to put a 6-point gap between themselves and Dusseldorf. And with only 3 games to go, I think this game, if they win it, keeps them in the Bundesliga. There's no more of a carrot that any of the players need to know. That's exactly what Berloza needs to say to them. If you win today, you're probably a Bundesliga player next year. So I'm going to go Mainz at home to Augsburg to win, and I don't care what the score will be.
Okay, so I'm going Leverkusen. Al's going Mainz, which means for the first time we can't have James saying, unlike Alan, I'm going to put my neck on the line. What's he going to say?
Yeah, I'll play it safe. I'm going to go Dortmund away at Fortuna for the reasons that I mentioned with the nap. I think they'll have too much for Fortuna. Fortuna are a club which I do like, and hope they do stay up this season. But, while there's still an opportunity there, albeit a very, very slim opportunity for Dortmund to get back in the title race. I think Dortmund will go there and win. I think Haaland will be back. I think he'll get a couple of goals. He'll have been quite frustrated not to play the Hertha game and the Paderborn games. He'll be chomping at the bit. And I think Dortmund should run out comfortable winners in that.
Does that mean we're going Bayern for our 4th one?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah. I think if we can't not put Bayern in, it's one of the. Listen, it is the standout game at the weekend with Gladbach coming to town, sitting in 4th place. But Bayern have already done Dortmund, done Leipzig, done Leverkusen, done everybody else. So there's no reason to think why Gladbach. Although to be fair, we did put a good position for Gladbach going there and causing Bayern problems. But at the moment in time, I think it would be daft to leave Bayern out of any accumulator, to be honest.
So Paddy Power are probably getting sick of taking our money, aren't they, every week? James, stick that one in for us. So we've got Bayern at home to Mönchengladbach, Dortmund against Dusseldorf, Leverkusen at Schalke, and Mainz at home to Augsburg, which probably spices it up a bit, doesn't it, the Mainz game? What's that coming out at?
It's got to be 4s or 5s, surely.
Yeah, so that's coming out at 4.6 to 1. So you're bang in the middle there, Alan. Yeah. I'm liking the look of that. I'm happy to go with that one.
Brilliant. All right, 4.6 to 1. We'll have a crack at that. We'll see how you boys get on in the nap challenge. Let us know how the bath goes. Send us a few pictures, Al, on WhatsApp. Keep us up to date on the weekend. Have a great one, boys. Look forward to speaking to you next week. And remember, if you're looking for additional stats and trends ahead of this weekend's Bundesliga action, go and download that Footy Accumulators Betting Hub app. Check out the smart Acca function. And remember, you've got to be 18 to bet. Please gamble responsibly. Have a great weekend. See you next time.